All right, do we have everything for model 6? So this is our last one. The nice thing about this model is it kind of goes over a lot of concepts, and it leads us into our last concept that we're going to talk about in geology. So on this one, you'll notice there's some other things going on here. All right, we maybe want to stop coloring just for a few seconds and pay attention. Okay, this is an easy color compared to the other ones. So you can see here, first of all, we have some fossils in the rock layers. Fossils are only found in what type of rock? We have 3 major types of rock on Earth. They're only found in what types of rock?
Limestone.
Well, those are examples of them. Sedimentary rock. So the nature on how sedimentary rock forms, how you have sediments that get laid down, compacted and cemented together, it sort of sets itself up easily for, hey, I'm going to trap an animal's body inside there, and then it's going to turn into a fossil later on. Now, just like the same premise that we used before where we talked about if we had a stack of newspapers and every day in the garage we put that newspaper in the pile, and then if I say go grab your oldest newspaper, where are you going to in the pile?
Very bottom.
Bottom of the pile. If you have fossils that are found in different rock layers, if we have a fossil that's found in a layer that's near the bottom, what can you assume about that fossil compared to the ones on the top?
Old.
It's older. Okay. And that is literally how we kind of know what's been going on with living organisms since the beginning of time. We study rock and fossil records. And we know, out of all of our animals on Earth, which ones showed up first.
Dinosaurs.
What type of animals?
Dinosaurs.
Nope, before dinosaurs. Fish. So fish were first. We talk about higher order animals. Fish showed up first, and then the fish had the ability to grow legs and go on land. And if you think that sounds nuts, there are fish that actually have fins that do walk on land currently on Earth. They will go up on land to get food and then literally go back in the water. No kidding. So then the fish turned into, what's the next animals?
Mammals.
Crocodiles. Sharks.
I'm glad we have not taken biology yet
Ducks.
since we're doing so
Squirrels.
bad at this.
Amphibians.
Amphibians, frogs, so think like frogs,
Oh,
they're the kind of go-between, right? Because they need water, but then they can live on land. And then amphibians turned into
Humans.
reptiles. And then reptiles turned into...
Horseflies.
Mammals.
Okay, you
God.
just need to stop. We gotta actually think here. Reptiles turned into what?
Mammals.
You guys ever pay attention to a chicken before? Chickens, and chicken's something that we're familiar with. They seem, if you've ever paid attention to a chicken before, actually, if you've looked at their legs before, and you look how they walk, they're very similar to reptiles. And we believe reptiles led to birds. We also believe mammals at some point in time were alive when dinosaurs were here on Earth, which dinosaurs are reptiles, right? Cash.
What's the dinosaur?
How do they evolve?
Genetic variabilities over a very long period of time, and organisms with the most desirable traits survive. That's how it works in nature. That's how it works. It's evolution.
How do we find out it's fish?
Yeah, like it's like
Okay, we'll get to that later. Let me just get through the directions. We have some fossils that we call index fossils on Earth, and the reason they're called index fossils is because those organisms were only alive for a really short time span on Earth. A really short time span. It's just like an index in a book, how you can kind of use that index to go to a certain spot in the book. We can use index fossils to go to a certain spot in time. Probably the number one that I always think of are trilobites. You can see them there in that one layer there. I think they're in layer C. Trilobites were only alive on Earth for a short time. So if we find a rock that contains a trilobite, we can really easily tell what time frame that rock was made in. It dates rocks for us, which is pretty cool. So not only do we have rocks going on here, we have, if you look also, let's look at this model here, what else we got going on. We have this weird dark line here. this weird dark line. Now this is something that we call in geology, it's called an unconformity. Sometimes in nature things happen and they come along and they wipe things out. Let's say a glacier comes along and scrapes a bunch of land, or maybe a river comes across and scrapes a bunch of land off. We're missing rock layers, and that's what unconformities are. So that's what those dark layers are on there. We also have, when you look at this layer H, just look at, where are we at? Where's my layer H? Layer H right there, that's not sedimentary rock. What type of rock do you think that is? That's igneous rock. So all of these layers were laid down. This igneous rock came through, and it kind of came up and then came out on the land for a little bit. That is igneous rock. So these were laid down. How do you think sedimentary rock is laid down? Do you think it gets laid down in a diagonal fashion like that too? It gets laid down like this, so something happened and tipped it. Call this tilting. So this is some feature happened, some happened, and this got tilted afterwards. And then you can see something came along and ate a bunch away, and you can see now the intrusion came afterwards. So you can start to see how geology really is a little bit like a puzzle and trying to figure all of these things out. That geologic time scale, so if we look at our questions, let's see, 6A, you're just identifying what the rock layers are. That's all you're doing. So 6A, A through H, what are the rock layers? 6B then, you're going to take the different rock layers. So if I look at rock layer A here, I can see that rock layer A has trilobites inside of it. Right there. Rock layer A has trilobites. So I need to find out when were trilobites alive on Earth. When were trilobites alive on Earth? So if I look at this geologic time scale I gave you, I can see right here, next to the Cambrian period, trilobites are dominant. So on your sheet, on this sheet here for 6A, because trilobites are found in that layer, you would put Cambrian here because that is when trilobites existed on Earth here. So you'd write Cambrian there. Okay? All right, I think I went over all of the stuff on there. All of the stuff.